And if you have sexual impurity in your life, you are deceived. You have deception in your life. You're deceived. Now, let me explain to you a little bit about sexual impurity and what it does that is so horrible. In order to have any type of sexual impurity in your life, you have to open the door to a host of other sins as well. You also have lying in your life. Because you have sexual impurity, you have to lie. You also have deception. You also have manipulation. You also have control. You also have fear. You also have doubt. You doubt that God can meet your needs. You also have unbelief. You don't believe what the Bible says about it. You open yourself up to a family of spirits. It's a family. Now, again, listen to me. I'm not talking down to you. I have been there. I have been immoral. I have fallen in this area as a believer. I have been restored scripturally. I am not speaking down to you. I know what it's like to be in bondage. And I'm going to tell you something. Every sexually immoral person is a liar. You can't be sexually immoral and not be a liar. Well, what's the first thing that David did when he was in adultery? He lied. And then he murdered. So you're going to open yourself up to all sorts of spirits. Now, here's the problem. Here's the deception. In order to be sexually impure, you have to sneak around to do it. You have to sneak around. If you were sexually impure before you got married as a teenager, you snuck around. You did not, it wasn't in the open. Your parents didn't say to you when you were leaving, where y'all going tonight? We're going to have sex. Okay, great. Be home by 11. You lied about where you were. Where'd y'all go tonight? We went to the bowling alley. You learned to lie. You learned to be deceptive. You learn to sneak around. But here's something that many of us don't understand. You develop an appetite that God never intended you to develop. You develop an appetite for sneaking around sex. That's why a lot of men right now have a problem with pornography and masturbation, because it is something fun that excites them that they have to sneak around to do. And they have an appetite from when they were a teenager that they developed, and they try to satisfy that appetite. And listen to me, it can never be satisfied. Can never be satisfied. So you develop an appetite for sneaking around sex. You have to sneak around, and you get butterflies in your stomach, and the adrenaline gets to rushing, just like if you snuck out of the house when you were a teenager, that feeling of waiting for the parents to go to sleep and crawling out the window or however you did it, but you get an adrenaline rush that God never intended you to associate with this, with the sex in this way, all right? So what happens is you develop an appetite for sneaking around sex. And then if you're impure with the woman you marry, when you do have sex before marriage, you have that feeling. I've been asked before by couples, believing couples, Christians, have said to me, if we really love each other, and we're not doing things with other people, but we really love each other, but we're in college and we're waiting until we get our degrees to get married, and we're going to get married, we're going to be faithful to each other, what difference does a piece of paper make? Here's my answer. A piece of paper makes no difference at all. None. What makes a difference is the blessing of God. That's what makes a difference. And you get out of God's order. Here's what happens. When you have premarital sex, you develop an appetite for sneaking around. This is why, listen to me carefully, this is why men will begin flirting. This is why a man will begin flirting with a woman at the office. You know why? Because he is sneaking around. And he has an appetite that God never intended him to develop. And he'll begin flirting, and then he'll think, I'm not going to commit adultery, but, just a little kiss here or hug there. And he'll begin to sneak around with this woman. Now, listen to me. Here's the problem. Really loves his wife, fell in love with his wife, but fell in love with her and associated love with this sneaking around feeling. So he begins sneaking around now with another woman, and he begins to feel about her. Are y'all following me? He begins to feel about her the way he used to feel about his wife. And this is why, by the way, men will say to their wives after they get married, see, once you get married, you don't have to sneak around anymore. This is why men will say, well, let's watch a movie, or let's look at this, or let's do this, and they'll begin to try to bring impurity into the marriage because they have a sneaking around feeling that they're not doing anymore, they're not satisfying anymore. But it still doesn't satisfy them. It's an appetite, listen to me carefully, that can never be satisfied. And I'm going to tell you in a moment how to deal with it. But it can never be satisfied. So he'll begin to sneak around with a woman, and he will, as he's sneaking around, he gets that feeling that he got with his wife before he was married. So he associates that feeling with love. So he thinks he loves her, doesn't love his wife. So he divorces his wife and marries her. Now what happens? He doesn't have to sneak around anymore. Now he's bored with her. She doesn't satisfy him. He doesn't get that adrenaline rush. So he starts talking to another woman. This is why some of you and some people, some men that you know, have been married and divorced 3 and 4 times. I'm speaking straight to you tonight. Is that all right? This is why. Because you're trying to satisfy a feeling, and that's the same reason you say, well, I've never been married or divorced, committed adultery, but some of you got a problem with pornography and other sexual impurities. This is why. You're trying to satisfy an appetite God never intended you to have. He did not intend you to have that. He intended you to be absolutely, madly, and passionately in love with one woman for the rest of your life. I'm telling you, we've gotten messed up in this world. Now, here's how it affects your relationship with God. You look at pornography, and then you come to church, and you lift your hands. I wish that men everywhere would lift up holy hands. Let me just tell you one word that we seem to forget. Holy. Holy hands. Now, listen to me. I'm not talking down to you because I've been involved in that and stood just like this in church. Here's the problem. You learn to have a covered relationship with God. You learn to be involved in this, and it sears your conscience.